Memphis, 1976. The man sitting alone in the music room at Graceland bore little resemblance to the young rebel who'd once made the world shake its hips. Elvis Presley, at 41, stared at the white grand piano where so many melodies had been born, but tonight only silence filled the room. The divorce papers had been final for 10 months, and Lisa Marie, his precious little girl, was with her mother in California. He'd conquered the world, but lost the only woman who'd ever truly known him. 3,000 miles away, Priscilla stood in her new apartment, holding a photograph from 1967, her wedding day, wondering if leaving had been the bravest or most foolish thing she'd ever done. Some loves are too big to fit inside the spotlight. Some truths only emerge when the cameras finally stop flashing. Elvis ran his fingers across the piano keys without pressing down, a habit he'd developed in recent months when the music felt too far away to reach. Graceland at 3 a.m. was a cathedral of memories, each room a shrine to the man he'd been, the life he'd built, the family he'd lost. "Boss, you should get some sleep," Charlie Hodge said from the doorway, concern etched across his face. Charlie had been there through it all, the meteoric rise, the Hollywood years, the comeback, and now this slow unraveling. "Can't sleep, Charlie. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. Not the angry Priscilla from the divorce proceedings. The young girl I met in Germany. The woman who believed in me before I stopped believing in myself." Charlie settled into a nearby chair, knowing Elvis needed to talk more than he needed sleep. "You could call her, you know. Check on Lisa Marie. And say what? Sorry, I chose pills in Vegas over our marriage? Sorry, I let the Colonel run my life while you raised our daughter alone?" Elvis's voice cracked. "She deserved better than what I gave her, Charlie. She deserved a husband, not a legend." The truth was more complicated than Elvis could articulate, even to himself. He'd met Priscilla when she was just 14, so young, so bright, untouched by the machinery of fame that had already consumed him. He'd shaped her, molded her into what he thought he wanted, only to watch her grow into her own woman who couldn't breathe in the gilded cage he'd built. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Priscilla sat in her dance studio, a space she'd created for herself after the divorce. At 31, she was finally discovering who she was beyond being Mrs. Elvis Presley. The dance classes she taught gave her purpose. The small apartment gave her peace. But late at night, when Lisa Marie was asleep, she found herself wondering if freedom was supposed to feel this lonely. Her sister Michelle had warned her. "You're going to miss him the moment you leave." "I already miss him," Priscilla had replied. "I've been missing him for years. At least now I'm honest about it." But she hadn't expected the missing to feel like this, like a phantom limb, always there, always aching. She'd left to save herself, to give Lisa Marie a mother who was whole rather than hollow. Yet some nights she picked up the phone and dialed the first 6 digits of Graceland's number before hanging up, unsure what words could bridge the canyon between who they'd been and who they'd become. Black and white image prompt. A solitary middle-aged man in profile, sitting at a white grand piano in a dimly lit ornate room at night, his hands hovering over the keys, but not touching them. Shadows casting across his face, showing deep contemplation and sadness. Vintage 1970s aesthetic. Dramatic chiaroscuro lighting. Film noir-style photography. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Elvis was in the bathroom, the usual array of prescription bottles lined up like soldiers, when he heard the phone ringing. He let it go to voicemail, assuming it was the Colonel with another tour proposal or another soulless movie script. But then he heard her voice, small, hopeful, heartbreaking. "Daddy? It's me. I know you're probably busy, but my birthday is coming up, and I was wondering, could Mommy come to Graceland too? Just for my party? I miss having both of you in the same room. Please?" Elvis played the message 3 times, each repetition driving the knife deeper. Lisa Marie would turn 9 in February. 9 years of life split between 2 homes. 2 versions of her parents who could barely look at each other during custody exchanges. He called Priscilla directly, his heart hammering like it hadn't since his first appearance on national television. "It's me," he said when she answered. Silence. Then, "I got the same message. We can't say no to her." Scylla, the old nickname, slipped out unconsciously. "I know." Her voice was softer than he'd heard in years. "But can we do this? Can we be in the same room without remembering everything we lost?" Elvis finished. "I don't know, but I think we have to try." For her, they agreed to meet 2 weeks before the party to discuss logistics. Neutral Ground, a small cafe in Memphis that neither of them frequented. Elvis insisted on no bodyguards, no entourage. Just them. When Priscilla walked into the cafe, Elvis felt the air leave his lungs. She wore a simple cream sweater and jeans, her dark hair longer than when they divorced. She looked healthier somehow, less fragile than the woman who'd left Graceland. But her eyes, those eyes still held the same depth that had captivated him in Germany all those years ago. "You look good," he said, standing awkwardly. "You look tired," she replied, but not unkindly. She could see the weight he'd gained, the puffiness around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and too many medications. They ordered coffee neither of them drank and talked around the reel. Conversation for 20 minutes. Lisa Marie's school, her dance lessons, her friends. Safe topics that kept them from drowning in everything unsaid. Finally, Priscilla set down her cup. "Elvis, what happened to us?" The question hung between them like a ghost. "I did," he said quietly. "I happened to us. I took a beautiful, innocent girl and turned her into an accessory. I was so afraid of losing you that I tried to control everything, and in trying to hold on, I crushed what we had." Priscilla's eyes glistened. "And I let you. I was so young, so desperate to please you, that I lost myself completely. By the time I found my voice, I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror." Black and white image prompt. A man and woman in their 40s sitting across from each other at a small cafe table. Coffee cups untouched between them, both looking emotionally vulnerable. The woman has long dark hair and elegant features. The man looks weathered, but still handsome. Morning light streaming through Venetian blinds creating striped shadows. 1970s fashion and interior, intimate and melancholic atmosphere. Lisa Marie's 9th birthday party at Graceland was a careful orchestration of normalcy. Priscilla arrived early, and for the first time in over a year, she walked through the front door as a guest rather than the lady of the house. Everything was familiar, yet foreign, her decorating choices still evident in the drapes and furniture. But Elvis's bachelor existence apparent in the subtle disorder. "I kept your garden," Elvis said, finding her standing by the window overlooking the grounds. "The groundskeeper wanted to redesign it, but I told him no. It's still yours." Priscilla turned, surprised by the admission. "Thank you." The party itself was magical, because they both worked to make it so. Elvis played the piano while Lisa Marie opened presents. Priscilla cut the cake. They sang together for the first time since the divorce, and for a few hours. They weren't Elvis Presley and his ex-wife. They were simply Mommy and Daddy, creating a memory their daughter would carry forever. As evening fell, and Lisa Marie fell asleep on the couch. Exhausted from excitement, Elvis and Priscilla found themselves alone in the music room. "Remember when she was born?" Elvis asked, his voice rough with emotion. "I held her for the first time, and I thought, this is it. This is what I was put on earth to do. Not the music, not the movies. Being her father. You're a good father, Elvis. You always have been. But I was a terrible husband." He turned to face her fully. I know I was. I know I suffocated you, tried to keep you frozen as that young girl I met in Germany. I was terrified that if you grew up, you'd realize you didn't need me anymore. Priscilla moved closer. That's the irony, Elvis. I never stopped needing you. I stopped being able to breathe around the version of you that fame created. The pills, the yes men, the isolation. I didn't leave you. I left the prison we'd built together. Can I tell you something? Elvis's vulnerability was raw, unguarded. Every night for the past 10 months, I've picked up the phone to call you. Not to ask you to come back. I know I don't deserve that, but just to hear your voice. To know you're real, and not just another thing I dreamed and lost. I've done the same thing, Priscilla admitted. I dial most of the number, and then hang up because I'm afraid. Afraid that hearing your voice will make me forget all the reasons I had to leave. They stood in silence. The space between them charged with history and longing, and the complicated mathematics of love that doesn't die just because it becomes impossible. What if, Elvis said slowly, we started over? Not as Elvis and Priscilla Presley, but as two people who used to know each other very well and want to know each other again. No promises? Priscilla asked. No expectations. No spotlight. Just U.S. Figuring out if there's an us worth saving. Priscilla looked at him, really looked at him, and saw beneath the bloated Vegas performer to the boy who'd once written her love letters from Hollywood, who'd called her from movie sets just to hear her laugh. Just coffee? She asked. Just coffee, he agreed. 1 cup at a time. Black and white image prompt. A living room scene with a young girl asleep on an elegant couch in the background, while in the foreground, a man and woman in their 40s stand near a piano looking at each other with complex emotions, longing, sadness, and hope-soft lighting from table lamps. 1970s Graceland interior, capturing a moment of possibility and heartbreak. Over the next 6 months, Elvis and Priscilla rewrote the rules of their relationship. They met for coffee every other Thursday when Priscilla brought Lisa Marie to Memphis. They talked about things they'd never discussed during their marriage, her dreams beyond being his wife, his fears beyond losing his talent. Elvis began therapy, something he'd resisted for years. He cut back on the pills, slowly, painfully, with Priscilla's encouragement, but not her pressure. She'd learned that she couldn't save him. He had to save himself. But she could witness his journey, could be the friend he desperately needed. Doc says I've been running from myself for 20 years, Elvis confided during one of their coffee dates. They'd graduated from the neutral cafe to walks along the Mississippi River, where they could talk without being recognized. Using the pills to numb everything, the pressure, the disappointment in myself, the fear that the music was drying up. Is it? Drying up? Priscilla asked. I don't know. I'm afraid to find out. What if I get clean and discover there's nothing left? That Elvis Presley was just a trick of youth and chemicals? Priscilla stopped walking, turning to face him. Then you find out who Elvis Aaron Presley is without the legend. Maybe he's a father who shows up. Maybe he's a man who plants gardens and plays piano for no one but himself. Maybe that's enough. The breakthrough came in August, during a particularly humid Memphis evening. Elvis had invited Priscilla to Graceland for dinner, something he'd been too nervous to suggest before. He cooked for her, or tried to, producing something that was nominally spaghetti, but bore little resemblance to food. They laughed until they cried, and somewhere in that laughter, something shifted. Elvis pulled her close, not with the possessive urgency of their youth, but with the tenderness of someone who'd learned the difference between holding on and holding space. I love you, he said simply. Not the way I loved you before, when I needed you to complete me. I love you as someone who's learning to be complete on his own, but wants to share that completeness with you. Priscilla rested her head against his chest, hearing the steady rhythm of his heart. I love you too. I never stopped. But Elvis, I can't go back to being who I was. I won't give up my studio, my independence, my life in California. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking if we can build something new. Something where we're both whole people choosing each other, not two halves desperately clinging together. What would that look like? I don't know, Elvis admitted. Maybe I spend more time in California. Maybe you spend more time here. Maybe we take it slow. Let Lisa Marie see her parents learning how to love each other better. Maybe we fail. But Scylla, I'd rather fail trying than succeed at being without you. That night, they didn't make grand promises or dramatic declarations. They simply sat together on the Graceland steps, watching fireflies dance in the garden, holding hands like teenagers discovering touch for the first time. The spotlight had finally faded enough for them to see each other clearly. Blackened, white image prompt. A couple in their 40s sitting close together on elegant front steps of a mansion at dusk. Holding hands, the woman leaning her head on the man's shoulder. Fireflies visible as small light spots in the garden behind them. Romantic and peaceful atmosphere. Southern Gothic architecture. Capturing quiet intimacy and second chances. Vintage 1970s aesthetic. They remarried quietly in 1978, with only Lisa Marie and a handful of close friends present. It wasn't the circus of their first wedding, no Colonel Parker orchestrating publicity, no magazine deals, no performance of perfection. Just two people who'd loved, lost, and found their way back to something truer than what they'd had before. Elvis never returned to his former glory, but he found something better contentment. He recorded a small album of gospel songs that won critical acclaim, proving he still had the voice, the soul, the gift. More importantly, he was present for Lisa Marie's childhood in ways he'd never been before. Priscilla kept her studio, her independence, her identity. They split their time between Memphis and California, learning that love doesn't require constant proximity. It requires constant choice. Some stories don't end with fireworks. Some end with two people on a porch, watching their daughter play, holding hands because they want to, not because they're afraid to let go. Are you ready to write your own second-chance love story? Whether you're rediscovering a lost connection or reinventing love in your current relationship, download our free guide, Rebuilding Love, 7 Steps to Starting Over Together, and learn how to create a relationship based on who you are now, not who you used to be. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about finding someone new, they're about finding each other again.